podcast where everyone has an opinion and you get to hear it. Today's episode will be guest hosted by Emma Ross.
All right. Hi, my name is Emma Ross. I am a 1L here at George Washington University Law, and today I am joined by Jennifer Cukier, who is the Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs at Starz. Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Emma. This is great. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to get started. So obviously, a lot of people, when they work in law or when they think of law, they think of like a very traditional legal path. They think of a courtroom, but you really work at the intersection of media and law, which is a little bit different. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your career path and how you got there.
Sure. So, I think that it's interesting if you're thinking about law students, if you don't sort of think of what kind of path you want, you kind of end up either spit out as a litigator or just in some area that you might not have anticipated. So for me, I worked in public relations for a few years before law school, and I liked that world, but decided I wanted to pursue a career in law. And I remember when I was leaving the PR firm from Boston, I remember just sort of throwing out there that I was going to go to DC and I was going to be a media lawyer and get an internship at the FCC, so at the Federal Communications Commission. And I kind of said it jokingly, but it stayed in my mind as, well, why wouldn't I pursue something like that? I have an interest in media, and I'm in DC, which is like this great advantage in terms of attending law school at GW. And so I ended up applying for an internship at the FCC. I did an internship at the bureau level and then another internship. I loved it so much. The people there were incredible. And I was exposed to media policy and I loved it. So I did another internship with Commissioner Adelstein, which was fabulous. And so very early on, I think I had sort of targeted this area of interest. And so when I came out of law school, I was really looking at a handful of firms that had a strong practice in media policy and ended up at one of those law firms. And then from day one, I spent a lot of time doing corporate work, which I also really loved. And so I started to seek out corporate work for media clients in particular. So I split my time between sort of the media regulatory side and also corporate work for media clients. And then I remember at that time kind of thinking, oh my gosh, one of the law firm's clients is HBO. It would be so cool to work there. And so I made it a point of, sort of being available whenever work from that client came up. Even if I was completely slammed and already pulling all-nighters, if some HBO work came in, I always raised my hand for it. And so when a position at HBO became available, an in-house job, I already was their outside counsel. They already knew me. And so it ended up being a seamless transition to working in-house at HBO. And then from there, I had a great 5-6 years at HBO, which was incredible. I was hired in anticipation of the launch of HBO Now. So that was really fun. And then pretty recently, about maybe a little over a year ago, I was in conversations with Starz and they offered me a position overseeing domestic deal-making activity on the legal side for distribution deals. So the deals with the distributors, traditional cable, like Comcast and Verizon, and also digital like Apple and Google, as well as overseeing content acquisition domestically, which was just the acquisition of content that's already been made.
You mentioned that you really took advantage of the opportunities, especially with HBO and wanting to move into a position with that company. Was there a specific project that you really feel like made an impact on you?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest impact was, and this sort of goes to, I think, really great advice I received early on, which is sort of manage your own career and run your own race. And so for me, that meant okay, I really would love to be in-house at a media company someday. I think that would be such a great use of my law degree. So I'm going to seek out that career path and not just do the work that's in front of me or the work that's assigned. Of course, you need to do that too, especially early on. But I'm going to seek out opportunities that head me closer or get me closer to that goal. And so I do think all of the work that I did all the work that I did for HBO as outside counsel obviously paved the way to me moving in-house there. And I also will say that sometimes you don't really know where opportunities will come up. For example, I remember I was working at the law firm and I just had my first child. And the law firm called me while I was out on maternity leave and said, would you come back a few weeks early to do like a secondment at HBO? And I said yes. Obviously, I wanted more time with my new baby, but that was a career opportunity I couldn't pass up. And it ended up being that they couldn't work out the fees or whatever. So the opportunity fell apart. But I do think that keeping yourself open to different possibilities and just having an idea of where you want to go is so, so important in the area of law. And I do think as law students, it's difficult because you look around at your peers and there's always that you come out of exams and everyone is saying, ooh, how did you answer this question? And how did you answer that question? And like law students are such an intense breed. And I do think that, it's hard to avoid the tendency to do that, right? Like you are all really competitive people. You're all straight A students and all of that. But I think it's really important for you to say, like, what do I want my career to look like? And to not really give into what everyone else is doing and to sort of figure out what your own path will be, because at the end of the day, this is your life and your career and no one's going to manage it for you.
You're also a woman in media and law, and that brings with it a unique set of challenges. Can you speak to like how that sort of affected your career, if it has, and how you've dealt with that along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think, so I remember early in my law firm days, a female partner giving me advice and saying, a lot of your networking with all of the male partners, which of course all the partners were predominantly white males, you should ask them to breakfast instead of for a drink. And I remember thinking, wow, if I'm being forced to network over breakfast and my male counterparts can go out for a drink, I'm already at a disadvantage, right? I'm already behind. And I remember being pretty deflated by that. And I do think, though, that you have to kind of walk that line. Also, in negotiations, I have been at the negotiating table and have had the sense more times than I can count that my voice is just not being heard. And so, like, I had a close colleague of mine. We used to sort of negotiate a lot of deals together. And I would turn to him and say, okay, mansplain me, just say what I said, just echo what I just said because no one's listening to me. And he would kind of at first he used to give me a dirty look, sort of saying like, well, that's kind of insane. But then more often than not, it would work. And everyone at the table would look at him and say, wow, what a great idea, right? And I think as a woman, I think you have to not be upset by that, even though it is objectively upsetting. And you have to work through those moments and to figure out that there are times when you are going to have to turn to the man next to you and ask to be mansplained. And then there are other times where you are going to stand up and, throw down the gauntlet and say, no, everyone is going to listen to me. But you have to kind of navigate that and pick your battles battle by battle. And I think it's really tricky and it's very difficult. I will also say something that I think we all have a responsibility in media and in law and in really every industry to realize that we all, minorities, women of color, and white men, we've all been sort of bred by society and conditioned to listen to the white men in the room and give them the sort of most credibility in terms of their voice. And I don't think that that's specific to white men. I think women have a tendency to listen to the white man in the room as well, which is upsetting. But I also think with that type of just kind of knowing that we all have been bred by society, it doesn't make you a bad person, but we've all been bred by society to kind of believe that way and to hear that way, then we can all do things to counteract that tendency. And I think that it's really important in order for progress to be made and for other voices to be heard, for everyone across the board to kind of realize those biases in the workplace and to work hard to fight against them.
I think those are all amazing points and important things for us to consider, especially as young women, like going through exactly what you're considering. Are there anything you found, like as a young woman navigating this, like important resources or anything that you found to be particularly helpful, or allies or anything like that, or resources that you found to be helpful along the way?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because, well, I would say a couple of things. One is collect. I hate the word networking because I don't consider myself someone who's good at it. And I think it sounds so formal. But I think almost like collecting mentors. And a mentor doesn't have to be, your law firm's program to assign you to a mentor. Sure, that's great. But you should, to me, mentorship looks like seeking advice from people. And that can be from peers. That can be from people who have a lot of experiences that you don't have yet. And I think seeking out advice, everyone loves to give advice. So it has served me well in my career, I will say, to seek out advice from people for lots of different reasons, men, women, it doesn't matter. And to kind of build those relationships, because people have a lot of experience and they have a lot of great insight to share. And whatever you may be going through, personally or professionally, there's a greater than not likelihood that someone you know has already gone through that. And I think that it's just building that sense of community and building those relationships makes just building a career in media or in law or in whatever you decide to do really great. So I would say that has been something that has served me well and feels more organic. Like I look at it more like building friendships or mentors rather than official networking. But I guess if you were looking at it, yes, it's networking. I don't know.
You spoke a lot about negotiations and those skills. Can you talk a little bit about like how you built those skills up and how you got to be so talented at it, I guess?
Well, it's funny because, looking back, I really wish that I would have taken a negotiations class at law school. I did not. It did not sound appealing to me. It sounded actually kind of intimidating, which is funny because that's what I do all the time now. I should have probably taken it looking back. But I think look, the reality is that 95% of your job out of law school, you're going to learn on the job. Law school teaches you how to think. It teaches you, it teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to work hard. But other than that, I would also say this, like when you all are going out and you're interviewing in the world, know that employers who are hiring students straight out of law school know that they don't know the substantive area of law yet. And they don't necessarily know a lot of the technical skills that you want them to know. And those employers all know that they're going to teach you those things. And so I do think for, future lawyers of America, relaxing into that interview process and realizing that no one is expecting you to walk in and know the ins and outs of media law or how to negotiate a deal between two media companies. But what you do bring to the table is unbridled enthusiasm, curiosity, attention to detail. And so I think focusing on that and on the aspects of your new jobs that you can control is really the important part, I would say.
Awesome. And then Is there anything else that you wish you would have tried out in law school while you were here other than negotiations?
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I do think the legal research and writing course ended up being incredibly beneficial, probably because I had an incredible professor who taught me a whole lot that I carried through into my professional life. And I still hear his voice, telling me to remove throat clearing from my writing and to, focus on the action in a sentence and all these different things. And to be really, really vigilant about details. And I think that certainly has served me well. I think also during law school, for a lot of law students, they sort of carve out this universe where it's just law school that they're doing during the time of law school. And for me, it wasn't that way. I got engaged, I got married during law school. A lot of other things were sort of happening in my life. So I don't know that there would have been anything else I would have pursued. I did those FCC internships, I think were great. But I really, and law schools, it's a tough thing to say, enjoy it, because it's grueling and kind of relentless in so many ways. But being a student has its benefits in terms of your schedule sort of being your own. And those are things I think it's good to try to appreciate in the moment as much as you can.
Jen, thank you so much for talking to me today. It has
been great. Thank you, Emma. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
That's all the time we have for today. If you like this episode, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. And as always, tune in again for another episode of Nothing But Dicta.